in terms of after Ryan passing, I think we made a deliberate decision to turn toward each other. I was concerned. We had lost our son and were completely devastated. Yeah, devastated. Yeah, our world just crumbled. And we didn't want our marriage and our family to crumble as also. So if that's what we want, then we're going to have to work toward that. We're going to have to put effort into that.
This is the Lost Child Podcast, where we delve into the topic of losing a child. These are real stories from real people sharing some of their darkest moments with us and their journey from that fateful experience. Let's dive into the podcast.
Thank you, Pam and Dana, for coming on the podcast again and doing this special couples edition where you're going to talk about your relationship, the impact that Ryan's death had on you guys as a couple, as parents, as friends, and everything. So thank you for coming back on the podcast.
Sure.
Thank you for having us.
So given everything with Ryan, is there maybe a family memory that you guys have that you like to talk about together as a couple and you like to remember a specific time that you had with Ryan? If so, can you share that with us?
I don't know that we have together times other than talked about it's always a good time when we go out to eat. So.
Where was kind of one of your favorite places to eat?
We like the cheeseburgers. Ryan really liked the Baconator, I think.
Where's that at?
Double Baconator, I believe.
Like at Wendy's?
I think it's Wendy's.
Wendy's.
Yeah.
Okay. And I remember he and I went to, it's the one where they make their own root beer. Now I can't think of the name of it.
Make their own root beer?
Is it local here?
It's local here, but I think that it's closed. There used to be one at Desert Ridge.
I know what you're talking about.
Anyway.
It's a burger place?
It's just a like American whatever, but he would always get this burger that had bacon and a fried egg on it. And the first time he ordered that, it was like the, good morning burger or whatever. Anyway. And I was like, wow, that just sounds really weird. And it was super messy and just delicious. And I'm a salad girl. So here I am with my little rabbit food salad and he's eating the
hamburger with like the yolk coming out.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm like, okay, you're going to have to give me a bite of that. And I'm like, okay, I get it. That was really good.
I did go and I got something like that one time and it was with a doctor friend of mine. And he's like, I know I'm not your doctor, but maybe not every time you go out, you should make sure you don't get a hamburger with an egg on top of it. All right. Just keep it to a minimum.
Here's your heart attack on a plate.
Like, okay.
Yeah, exactly.
It was pretty good. But
yeah.
So how do you guys feel like your relationship was before Ryan passed away, like as a couple together?
It was good. Okay, great. It's like any relationship, up and down, and a lot of ups, lots of downs too.
You weren't like
Raising
hanging on the
kids.
thread of divorce or anything like that?
No. We didn't always like each other too much sometimes, but we were also very busy and occupied a lot.
And how long had you been married at that point? Because Ryan was 17. You guys had been married for how many years?
30 years.
Yeah.
About 30 years.
30
We're
years.
almost 40 years now.
Wow.
Yeah. But yeah, I think it was good. We were, as Dana said, we were coming to the end of, the high school years with all of our kids. So the other children were adults. Alex is still living with us, but fully adult. The girls were out of the house and Ryan was 17. So, we were still in the thick of parenting him, right? Those are some really busy years. There's practices and, rides here and there and performances and different things. So it was still a very busy time, but also very good. There's a lot of independence that comes with that. So it's easier to have a date night, when you don't have to have a babysitter or those things. So we had gotten back into that practice of spending time together as a couple. So I do think things were good. I wouldn't say perfect. No one is perfect, but I think in general, we had
a
good relationship.
About probably a sophomore year, we kind of realized, oh, wow, this is going by fast.
Mm-hmm.
What do we want the next few years to be like? And do we need to make changes? Not necessarily in our relationship, but with our family. We're not going to have daily interaction with our kids are going to be moving out. And so what do we do as a couple? What do we do as a family? How do we express love and acceptance more? So we
what were some of those things that you shifted? Because you said about his sophomore year that you were kind of like,
I think looking back, we were probably very strict, I suppose. People would call us a strict, we go to church, that's what we do, come to church, go and do this, do that. I think with Ryan, he wasn't, I don't want to say, he wasn't like a troublemaker or a rebellious type of person, but he did have his own thoughts, and sometimes those weren't the thoughts that we wanted to do or things we wanted him to do. And so there was conflict there. I think that added to some of his anxiety, but it was hard. It was a hard period, those years of the depression, and because we could see it, and what do we do? We're the parents, we need to help him, and so that was a strain, I think, in many ways.
And I think there was a lot of energy put into Ryan, trying to make sure that we were giving him time and experiences with us and with the siblings whenever we could. As I said, the other kids were out of the house. And so that kind of happens to the youngest a little bit. They're left in the home, and there's a lot of attention placed on them, which can feel like a microscope sometimes, right? So it's good to be that center of attention, but also it can feel like pressure.
Yeah.
So I think
if you look at pictures of when we'd go on a hike or we'd go somewhere, and he would go, but you could tell the expression on his face was, I'm not loving this.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's true.
It wasn't a joyful experience for him, but he would go, and I'm grateful that he did. So we tried to walk that balance, and it was hard.
It's hard, but I do think we were also trying to remain in our relationship too. We're very much focused on him, recognizing that he was going through some difficult things, but also knowing that we needed to have time together.
Yeah.
So
you knew that your relationship was also a priority.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Did you still find, it sounded like you at least said date night and stuff, but did you still find ways to connect, whether it was emotionally or intellectually, like have talks or walks or date nights? What are some of the things that you guys did as a couple to make sure that you still had that relationship? And this is pre Ryan's death.
Ryan was in band, and if you haven't experienced the high school band, it's a lifestyle. It's a all-consuming competitions every weekend. So we became band parents in a big way. And so we would spend a lot of time with each other, going to band events and supporting Ryan and our other kids. They were older. By the time Ryan got into high school, all the others had graduated. But all along the way, we had supported our kids who were in band, or our other son who was in football. That's what we were doing. We were going and being with them and supporting him that way as a family. And initially Ryan was very hesitant, didn't really want to do the band thing, but turned out to be really good for him. And
nice.
Yeah.
A place where he found some people that he could relate to. And so that was good. So that was our life, was band and being a part of that community. The parents all get to know one another. And so we did spend a lot of time going on the road and having fun.
Nice. And then by way of context, because we've had both of you individually on the podcast, and just for everybody else, if you want to go listen to those podcasts, they're available. Pam's there and also Dana's there. But by way of context, Ryan killed himself by suicide his senior year. He was 17. It was in the fall of 17, when he was 17. And he was the only one left in the house at that point. Well, you had an adult son that was also living there.
Alex still. But
that's just that's just, I guess, to give us context for kind of the remainder of the questions will kind of be, okay, as a couple, then how did you move from this experience with Ryan? But that is a pretty quick synopsis of what happened.
Yep.
Okay.
So in terms of after Ryan passing, I think we made a deliberate decision to turn toward each other. I think we were concerned. I was concerned. We had lost our son and were completely devastated. Devastated. Yeah.
I'd agree.
Understandable.
It just was like our world just crumbled beneath us. And we didn't want our marriage and our family to crumble as also. We didn't want to lose that at the same time. So I think we made a deliberate decision to turn toward each other and to try to do what we could to be of comfort and rely on each other and our relationship and also try to pull our other kids together as well and be strong as a family. For me anyway, that was where my hope, any glimmer of hope for me lies in our family being eternal.
Yeah.
That the hope that someday we'll be together again.
Yeah.
So if that's what we want, then we're going to have to work toward that. We're going to have to put effort into that.
And was that more like a body language thing? Both of you read the other person, or you had like a deliberate conversation that was like, hey, Dana's like, Pam, I want to be with you. Whatever we got to do, we got to be together. And you were kind of like, yeah, I agree. Like, did you have a conversation, or was it just kind of like you both felt the same way?
I think there was both. I do think we
I
were
remember having
deliberate.
a thought first that, okay, this is a terrible, stressful, awful circumstance. I'd heard stories of people in marriages and families that struggle with that. They might blame one another. All these ugly, hard feelings can come up.
Yeah.
And I didn't want that. I wanted us to be a family. I wanted to be with her. I wanted to avoid that. Some you can't avoid. But I want, like she said, we made a conscious effort, decision, conversations. Hey, we need to band together and ride this out, and it'll be okay someday. But right now we gotta stick together.
Did you guys
keep going.
Did you guys have any coping things you did together, or just separately and completely coped separately from Ryan's death? From Ryan's death. I don't know.
So right away, everything changed. Everything that was on the calendar was wiped clean. Everything that we were, expected to do, all of our responsibilities in many ways evaporated in that one experience. And so we had to very slowly put things back together. And we were in such a state of grief, right? It just is like, it was hard to put a coherent thought together.
Mm-hmm.
Those were really difficult. Those first few days, the first few weeks were really, really hard. But we had a friend who she had died with cancer. But one of her things that she talked about a lot was gratitude walks. And that sounded like a really good idea at that time. And so in that first week, and it was still warm, so we'd have to go really early in the morning, but we would go for walks together, and we would talk about the things that we were grateful for. And that was hard, but there was still a lot to be grateful for. And there were so many acts of kindness directed at us, at our family, things that we never would have thought to ask people to do. They stepped in and did them. So we tried very hard to lean into that gratitude. So I remember that.
And you never did the gratitude walks before. That was like a thing that happened after Ryan.
Sometimes.
Yeah, but it was deliberate.
That was deliberate, and we have to get up every day and do this.
Here's also a reminder to subscribe and follow this podcast on whatever platform you're listening to. Now, back to the podcast.
So I have to let you know, last week was a really hard week for both of us.
Mm-hmm.
And there was one day that both of us didn't really want to do anything.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, let's do a gratitude walk. We got 10 minutes. We can go 5 minutes from our house and 5 minutes back before we have to go do something.
Great.
And it was very simplistic, but it was honestly just because you guys had mentioned it. Both of you separately had mentioned it in your podcast. So we did it. And it was simple stuff like this tree. I'm thankful for this tree, or I'm thankful
It had
for
to
the
be
sky.
anything that we saw.
Yeah. Because it made it so that we would, instead of trying to focus in our mind of something, it was, no, you have to actually physically see the thing that you're thankful for.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's just air and sky.
Mm-hmm.
If you can see that, that's great. You know, well, good for you. That's awesome.
Yeah. So thank you for that, that input. It's helped us. It did
Very,
help
very
that day
simple.
get a
Not
little bit better.
Not a big elaborate thing, but very, very useful, I think.
Yeah.
And particularly in grief, where you place your energy is going to determine where you go. And there are times when we have to lean into the pain. You do have to express the grief that you feel to get it outside of your body, if that makes sense. Or I had to do that. Maybe personalize that a little bit. I needed to express it. I needed to get it out of me in some way. And so I needed times when I cried or was angry or whatever the feeling was. But I also then needed times when I chose to look for good or chose to be grateful for something, to see the hand of God, to see the goodness of people. And that there was such a, in the experience of losing Ryan, of him dying, there was so much pain, but at the same time, there was an awful lot of love that came back to us. There was such a duality in that. And so I think, and especially moving forward, it's so important to be able to accept both of those, right? I still have the pain. The pain hasn't left me, but I sure have gotten a lot of love. And if I can look to that and focus on that can blunt some of the pain for me. So sometimes that's helpful. Gratitude is pretty powerful in terms of changing mood and changing perspective. So that was one place that we did that.
And I'll also say we're very different in our emotions, in our way we think, the way we process things, the way we do things, the way we communicate. It's all different. It's amazing that we can understand each other at all sometimes when you think about it, right? Because we don't have a mind meld. We don't have that. We think sometimes we do, but we don't. So, and I recognize that she processes grief differently than I do. And so we gave one another space to process and have that time to cry or to be alone or to do a project or whatever it was that would get us through. And I think we became and are becoming better at communicating, hey, I'm having a day. I need to be alone, or this is what I think I need. I'm going to do this thing. And we provided space for that. So it wasn't like we were doing everything together or doing the same things or doing the same way. We're different people, and that's great. And we need to learn how to help one another with our differences. And I think that helped too.
Do you ever feel like either of you were mad at each other with however either one was coping? Like, were you ever mad at her with like, oh, she should be coping like this, or she shouldn't be doing this, or vice versa?
I learned long ago not to have expectations about how she should think or do, because she's her own person. And
even as an example, this is kind of like I'll try to make it work for a couple, but in the sense, there was somebody that we had on the podcast, and about 2 or 3 weeks after her son died, she went on this snow skiing trip because she just needed to do something. Right. And she had like posted some picture or something on social media. Somehow she had been tagged in, and she's at this place trying to like somewhat enjoy life still. Right. And somebody had messaged her and be like, how dare you try to enjoy your life? Essentially, like, how dare you when you just lost your son? You shouldn't be acting that way. Right. And so instead of digging into that, more from like a couple standpoint of almost looking through your lens, like, I'm really sad right now. Why is he super happy? Or vice versa. Did anything like that ever transpire?
I do remember a flash of annoyance and anger. It was on a holiday, and there was an activity that I wanted to do. And I do remember there was a flash of, let's not be pushy about that. And so, I needed to back off a little bit. So, but it didn't last long. And it was just a tense moment.
Yeah.
And, showed me, okay, I need to be careful in how I communicate. If I'm making Dana feel like he has to do a certain thing, that's not fair.
Yeah.
Right. So learning how to invite instead of expect, maybe helps that communication, right? That here's something I'm interested in doing. Would you like to do it with me? As opposed to making him feel like he had to do something that I wanted. So, So communication is really important, and it goes both ways, right? You have to be a careful communicator, but you also have to be really careful in how you receive communication. So I think that's part of it.
I think Pam mentioned in her discussion with you that, people don't know what to say. We didn't know what to say to each other. And it's going to be awkward, and there's going to be things that are potentially very hurtful. But we needed each other to know that we're on the same team. We're different, but we're on the same team. We want the same goals. And if we gave each other some grace, I think when I was insensitive, honestly, I don't know what you're talking about right there. What this thing was that I was reluctant to go to.
And I don't want to be too specific because I don't want you to remember it. I'm okay for it too. Yeah.
Thank you for that grace.
And I think that's part of it is like, I know Dana's intentions, right? Yeah. I know that his intentions are to be kind. I know he's in this with me, right? And I hope that he knows the same thing of me. And we're going to get it wrong sometimes. Yeah. So I do think,
right, and we do get it wrong, and we do make those assumptions, and we do get hurt feelings, and we apologize, and we're patient. I think
and
one of the things that
too.
I was going to say, I hope we forgive.
But the patience and trying to get some wisdom about, when you just clench up and you're angry for no reason, that you can identify, at least with me, and be accepting and patient that, okay, I gotta apologize. I gotta back down sometimes. And anyway, it's a journey.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Speaking about communication, did Ryan's death shift how you actually communicated together? Did it become more black and white and clear and saying, this is what I need? Was it like non-communication? How did it shift from before Ryan's death to after Ryan's death?
I think we've tried to be better communicators and more careful communicators. There's so much surrounding mental health, and that also became part of our journey, right? Learning more about how do we support each other? How do we support our other children in a community and in a family? The risk is raised when you have a loss. So the siblings of someone that dies by suicide are at greater risk.
Wow.
And so, as we begin to learn those things, okay, what do we do to mitigate those risks? And part of that is being honest and open with our own feelings and being willing to listen to the feelings of others. And so hopefully we do a better job of that. And we're not perfect at it by any stretch. And family relationships are the hardest, right? Sometimes it's hard to use skills with your family members in some ways. So I think we do the best that we can, and we try to be forgiving where we need to. And like I said, it's not perfect, but effort is also everything. Like when you see someone trying, when you see someone doing the best that they can. It's much easier to accept that from them and receive that as a gift in many ways, right? That's a gift that they're giving to you, their attempt to understand.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I saw that. I saw Dana's efforts to be loving, to be comforting. I saw those efforts, and it became easier to receive it, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And from your perspective, how did your communication style change, or the communication between you and Pam?
I've developed a very good mechanism in my brain for shortcuts. Oh, I know what you're going to say. Never mind. That kind of so I've had to unlearn some of that, and I'm still working on that, where
You mean you already
I don't really make I try not to make assumptions. I do all the time. I have a shortcut with communication. Oh, we don't have to talk about it because I know what
I know
the
what you're
answer
going to
is.
say.
Mm-hmm.
I know what you're going to say. Whatever. I had a lot of that.
I may or may not need to unlearn some of that. I may or may not have multiple conversations with Camille in my head every single week without actually talking to her.
Yeah. So trying to relearn that, and when you speak to each other, I can't remember the phrase, but it's, listen to understand, not listen to get your argument back, or, to figure out how to get your point in, but listen to understand. That's important.
Mm-hmm.
And it takes a lot of time, and there is no shortcut, unfortunately, much as I would want that to happen, but it takes time and understanding and patience. So
I also think
changed.
time together is important, right? And I think that was something that we gave to each other in the aftermath of Ryan's death, in the weeks after. I think we talked about this, but we just maybe 2 to 3 weeks after Ryan died, we took a trip to the Grand Canyon,
Mm-hmm.
because that's a place we both love and enjoy. So that was a time for us to be together and focus on one another and be in a place of beauty that we both appreciate and appreciated together.
Who brought that up? Who brought it up? Like, hey, let's go to the Grand Canyon.
I kind of, both of us, like, hey, we haven't been, we need to go.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons is it's very symbolic for us. We have both taken trips together down into the canyon. We crossed the canyon. She's done it with friends. I've done it with friends. We've done it together. But for us, when you get to the South Rim and you look and you can see the other side, and it's beautiful and it's afar and there's lots of open space, right? It's like how you look at that trail and you recognize we made it across that canyon.
Mm-hmm.
We did it. So for us, that's the hope. That's accomplishment. If we can do that, we can do anything, that kind of idea. So for us to see that, experience that, and be in nature, that's very powerful for us.
And to me, it helps me to connect with God, to be in a very beautiful place. It's so vast, and there's just so much to it, but it allows me to see that there is a creator, that this world exists out of love, right? From a father who loves his children and provides this beautiful world to us. So there's that connection to God. And I also think for us, that's part of it. I do think our faith has an impact on our relationship and on what we believe that relationship is and where we want it to be. So I think that's a piece of it as well, that faith comes in and is a source of strength as well. So that helps. It helps a lot.
And what are some of the other things you guys did then in the following weeks, months, and even in that first year? You said you created places for you to be together. What were some of those other things that you guys did so that you could have time with just you and Dana?
Well, and some of them were family things, right? So it was the family coming together. One of the rituals or traditions that we adopted was we would light fire lanterns, or some people call them wish lanterns.
Mm-hmm.
And part of what we love about them, it's just a little bit naughty because there's some fire involved, right? You're lighting a fire.
You're just letting it go up in the sky, and
who knows where it'll go? Yeah,
and we're careful to get the kind that are biodegradable. We feel a little bit better with that. We also know that there's probably a little bit of litter involved in that, and I feel bad, but anyway. But also, like, Ryan would get that. Like, does that? I don't know if that makes sense to you. There's a little bit of, it's beautiful. There's something about that, the lighting it and letting it lift off into the heavens and watching that light. You know, there's some beauty in it. There's some, so that's kind of a tradition that we adopted, and it's become kind of, like I said.
So we have a lantern for you, which we conveniently forgot. So we'll have to.
Oh, wow.
Thank you.
And I often,
Thank you.
when I know someone has experienced a loss, that's one of the things I give to them is, you know, when the time is right, you know, send off the lantern. And it's kind of there's some lovely experiences with that, but that's one of the things that we've done. It's kind of there's some fun and beauty involved in it.
One of the other things we thought about doing was like Pam's friend mentioned, do some service. One, I think there was a couple things we did. We stayed at a friend's home up in Flagstaff with our extended family, and we did a hike. We hiked Mount Humphreys. Ryan and I did that hike. We got a picture at the top. It's pretty cool.
I did that the week before Sonny died.
Not an easy hike, right?
Yeah.
But he wrote for his English class, he wrote a beautiful, it wasn't really a poem, but it was a story.
Essay, yeah.
An essay, and it talked about, you know, the wind and the biting cold flakes of ice on his face. You know, it was very descriptive and beautiful. So to remember that, we spent some time with our family, and then we did a hike and remembered him. We did that a couple times. Another time we went over to Mesa and did the Feed My Starving Children service project, where you fill up bags of food for people all over the world. And so we did that. That was a lot of great experience with our extended family, pleasant memories there, but things to serve. And Ryan, you know, for all the struggles he had, he was always willing to serve and help people move. I can't remember how many times we went on help people move in and move out, and he was always right there. And I think in his friends at school, you know, they always said how kind he was and how he looked out for people. And so we do things like that to honor him and remember his way.
And I think that's building new memories as well. And I think the new memories also are bonding, right? And so it's about creating, and in many ways it's retraining your brain also, right? You're adding that new layer of being together and of how you are together, that as a couple, we want to reach out to other people. We want to be of service. So those things can be helpful on multiple levels, right? There's the bonding of the actual action itself and the enjoyable time. There's the new memory that's created. And I think that there's a, you know, especially with the loss of a child, you don't get to continue creating memories, right? And so it becomes important to choose what your new memories are going to be. It becomes important to decide, right? And be proactive about, you know, the types of activities we're going to engage in together as a couple, as well as a family, right? That's how we forge our new identity. Because in so many ways, there's life before the loss and life afterward. It's a dividing point, like the Grand Canyon. And it feels like that long, difficult trek to get from one side to the other. And we know we have survived some really difficult, right, strenuous treks in our lives. And this is another one, right? Loss is another one.
We have a good friend that she's pretty adventurous, and she's probably the only one we'll go with us on these things where we go in the Grand Canyon. We have some danger happen and some streams to ford and different things. But those new memories, sustain us and give us hope that there'll be many more to come.
I love that.
That's something that I want to do with Camille, is go do the Grand Canyon.
We'll go with you.
I gotta go down in and camp
She's
for a little
going
bit
this fall.
You have to get permits, though.
I know you do.
You do
That's
have to get
something that I would
permits
want to
to
do.
camp, but not to hike.
Not to hike. But if you want to enjoy the Grand Canyon, you do need to
do the camp.
Yeah, we've done it. We both have done it both ways, where we've done it in a day.
Way more fun to just hike in the morning and play in the
play
afternoon.
in the water, relax, have a little time camp.
Mm-hmm.
And so, that would be that's my advice. Do it over a couple of days.
Nice.
You'll still be sore, but it's a lot more doable if you break it up. And there's so much beauty. Why hurry? That's our big thing. It's in, this is, one of the wonders of the world.
But take your time, enjoy it.
One thing that you both talked about in your individual podcast was that after Ryan's death, that you guys actually did a couples counseling together. You did like 5 sessions because that's what your insurance at the time paid for. A couple of questions I would have about that. Was there any hesitancy on anyone's behalf of like, no, I don't really want to do this, and the other person's like, no, we need to do this? Or was it just kind of like, we need to do this? Kind of how did that play out?
It took a little time. Like, it was a few months, not a long time,
but
a
few months.
It was a few months before we were ready.
It was time to take advantage. Why not?
Yeah,
why
you
not
both collectively decided.
Right.
This was good, and our therapist was very good, very good.
And both of you had said that you actually got benefits out of those sessions.
Yeah, because she made it. When you're in this turmoil of how do you do this? How do you process it? What's going on? She was very matter of fact. This is how it's going to be for a while, and you will come through it. But then giving some concrete steps, like I don't want to say checklist, but a list of things, concrete things that were doable, that weren't like pie in the sky. I felt like it was very concrete. There's some things you can do to process what's happened.
There's another way you can help support the podcast. Buy one of these awesome t-shirts. So I don't really want this to sound like an advertisement, but I want to let you know that we have shirts now in stock, these Shine Bright shirts, special edition for the Lost Child podcast. We have many different sizes of shirts, including a men's shirt and a women's shirt and a youth shirt. Purple, just like Sunny would like it. And it says Shine Bright because of her sunny personality. You can get your own, so visit the video description or podcast description, and there'll be a link to our Shopify store. So hurry quick, select a shirt size that fits best for you. Now, let's get back to the podcast.
I also think, she normalized the grieving process, right? And we had done a little bit at that point. We were a few months into it, so we had made some good decisions together as a couple and as a family of how to move forward and to move forward united. But that was important to us. And we'd already made that, it was very much a decision to move forward together, giving each other space, but also like this was a relationship that's important to us, right? Worth the effort. Absolutely. She normalized grieving in our own ways. She normalized not having a timetable or expectation of how long we were going to grieve. Like there was no timetable. We didn't have to meet any expectations. We will have these feelings as long as we have them. And again, she did give us some ideas about, things like journaling, things like taking the time to be together, opening up about our feelings, not burying what we feel. And
I also remember saying, you don't have to be stuck. Use the word stuck.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you can get stuck in your grief and you're not. And again, no timetable, no expectation, but you don't want to live in that grief 24/7 for ever, right?
Mm-hmm.
But do things that will help you process. And I don't think you ever move on or you get over it. That's not, but you learn to live with it.
Yeah.
And to excel and to experience wonderful things again. And, there's hope, and working through all of that is a process, and it's different for everybody.
I know Ryan was your last child at home, but do you feel like it changed your parenting style at all after he passed away?
I hope so.
Yeah.
I hope it did.
In what ways do you hope it did?
I hope that I communicate my acceptance to my children more effectively. I think we always set a really high bar. We had standards and expectations, and I hope my children know that I accept them, who they are, where they are, no matter what. I hope I communicate that better than I maybe used to. I hope they know that we will always support them and love them regardless. And that's something that I always said, right? I would tell them when I'd put them to bed, I love you the most, and I always will. And even when you grow up and go to college, I will still love you the most. And even when you are a mom yourself or a dad yourself, I'm going to love you the most. And I know I said it, and that was, something that was there, but I think they also felt the weight of expectation, right? The weight of some of those things. And so I hope that I communicate that better to them. I hope they feel, always welcome to come home, right? I hope they always know that we are home to them, right? We'll always be a soft place to fall. I hope that comes across. That again, that's the message I want to send. What they receive, right? That's sometimes dependent on where they are, emotionally and intellectually to some extent. So, but I hope they know that we're there. We'll always love them.
Well, we've had a milestone this past week at our house.
What?
Our oldest son, Alex, is moved out to Utah.
Oh, really?
He'll be starting medical school. We're very proud of him.
Oh, awesome.
And so we're officially empty nesters now.
Wow.
Long time coming on that one, but that's okay.
So we look forward to that newness of that and his independence. He's always been very independent, but now he's up there on his own, making his way, and we got to figure out what we're going to do.
Speaking about some of that alone time, how did Ryan's death impact your guys' intimacy together as a couple, your sex life, any of that? How was it before? What did you think about what it was before? And then how did it shift it or impact it?
She's very patient and she loves me and will let me hold her hand. I remember when we were dating before we got married that I just couldn't get close enough to her. We'd sit on the couch, whatever, and you just want to be in contact,
Sounds similar.
And then we had kids, and then no time for that. But I think during this time, we did try and be close and available for each other, and that was important. And I appreciate you for pointing this out to me. And being willing to go with it and have those experiences together as a couple and have intimacy. And I think it was very good and very important for both of us.
Absolutely. And I think that physical closeness, sexual and non-sexual, is very important to a relationship.
Yeah,
definitely.
And in terms of in the grieving process, right, it was very comforting to be wrapped up in Dana's arms and to be comforted. And we cried together many, many nights and days. And I also think that to be physically intimate is very healing, right? Healing from the grief, but healing within, creating that bond as a couple, as a married couple. So important. And not to say that it's been perfect or, always exactly what the other person need. But I think, again, that was another way that we turned toward each other, that there was a decision to be there for each other in every way, right? To comfort each other emotionally and to offer that empathy. But also there is a bond within marriage that doesn't exist anywhere else, or at least not for us. And so that became very important. And healing is a really good word to use, I think, particularly when it comes to intimacy within a marriage, whether that's the emotional intimacy. And nobody knows the loss of Ryan, right? The loss of my baby any more than the father of that baby, right? We both have lost this tiny human that came to us, that we, loved his whole life and continue to love. Nobody else knows what that is any better than Dana does. And so it's so important to keep, for us anyway, for me, to keep that intact, right? That if anybody gets what my life experience has been, it's Dana.
Yeah.
And so there's that, I think, a need that I had to cling to him, right? To be that loving spouse, right? To be, my rock, my comfort in grief.
And I think we had some advantages, perhaps, that others don't always have. There was a period in my career where I was traveling a lot. And Pam did everything. She was the contractor. She hired people, to fix the house, take care of things. She called me, hey, the tub won't stop. The water won't go. And I'm like, well, I'm across the country. I can't do that right now, but call so-and-so. It was hard. Those times are hard. Yeah. But the period where Ryan passed, it was not that way. I had a job. It's a stable job here in town. They were very accommodating for, time off from work, especially in those early times. And then when I started back, it was just part-time, because it was, how do you function? How do you function is things, it changes your perspective so much. But I was able to go home every night and be with her. Not everybody gets that opportunity. They have to have grief at a distance and marriage at a distance. I think that's very difficult. But we tried to protect that about, having time together and looking to one another for comfort. Because you can look everywhere for comfort, whether it's sexual or substances, alcohol, drugs, whatever. There's all kinds of ways that people can seek that comfort. But for us, we were fortunate, and we decided that we'd stick together and be there for one another.
And I think we've already said that, but giving each other space also, right? So I had a group of friends, a couple of different groups of friends actually, and Dana was always understanding of that, of, not being jealous of that time away from home. And again, we didn't have small children at home, so there was a lot of freedom in terms of, either one of us being able to come and go as we needed to. And I think Dana understood that I needed my girls sometimes.
And they'll let me go if they go hiking, they go on adventures. If there's a really scary road, they'll let me go so I can drive. Nice. But they're very, I can see the benefit of her spending time regularly with them because they process things different than I do.
Yeah.
And they are wonderful.
So there's that balance, right? The balance of the time together, but also, having those supportive relationships and friendships and opportunities to, again, that's also about creating new memories. And I think there's some healing in the brain that happens also as you have new experiences, as you go to new places. I think that can be really good. And you, especially in the beginning of grief, so much is happening within the body as well as the brain that it requires some effort to calm your nervous system, right? I know in the immediate aftermath, both of us struggled with not racing thoughts, probably more of an intrusive thought, like we would relive, the really difficult traumatic moments. Like that, there was a long time when we were reliving that. And
you just couldn't turn it off.
Right.
Yeah.
And that, that began to lessen, right? It became, instead of happening every day, it happened less often. It happened. I don't typically have that. It's been a really long time since I've had that kind of an intrusive thought or where I was reliving specific moments that were difficult. But I think part of that is not shying away from new experiences. And that's, there are ways in which it's easier for me to say yes to things now, right? Life is fleeting. I recognize how fleeting it is. And so if there's an opportunity to do something I've never done before, it's easier for me now to say, yes, why not? Why not? Right? So that's a good thing.
I remember an experience too, where we were together. It was a band function. And there was somebody grilling some meat, as part of the refreshments, whatever. And that particular smell you had a very strong reaction to that because it was associated with how Ryan passed. It was, and it was just right out of the blue, boom. Oh no. And it was a panic thing. And, we had to have a minute there to get away from that or to process
to regulate. I needed to regulate my emotions.
Whoa. Yeah. That was, so that those kinds of things can happen. Any certain little things associated with that trauma can, even out, you're having a smooth sailing patch and you're going good. Boom, here comes that 100-foot wave every once in a while and just takes you by surprise. And that still occurs, but less and less. And you learn how to regulate.
Yeah.
So a pointed question then, along with all of that, because there was so much almost chaos, and even in your minds, there was tons of chaos right after. Was there any struggle with intimacy because of all of everything that was going on in your
those
brain?
Intrusive thoughts,
right? Where it essentially was damned you from being able to actually be intimate together following Ryan's death for a period of time?
Probably.
I don't remember that. Yeah, I don't remember that happening. I felt like, especially right afterwards, there was a lot of intrusive thoughts. It was very difficult to neither one of us slept well for a matter of weeks because of that, because of the intrusive thoughts, because of just the shock of the experience, right? And what is life even supposed to be anymore? Yeah. Right. So
it's all the plans that we had. Now what? They're not. And we come to realize that a lot of the things we worried about were not that significant.
It's amazing how it's almost somebody puts glasses on you and you go, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
All those things that I worried about before, thought were big deals, aren't really big deals.
Not so much.
It's not.
But what are the big deals? Your relationships with your family, with each other. Those are really big deals.
Yeah.
That's going to be important.
Yeah.
So, where you go to school, what grades you get, do your best. That's all anyone can expect ever. And sometimes, we had, through this experience, a lot of people talked to us and were approachable, I think, but their kid was struggling in school and they decided that it was better for their mental health to just take a break. 6 months. This was they were going to graduate, they're on track, blah, 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 blah. But they realized, and good for them, hey, no, let's take care of this. Let's have a break and get regulation, get help, and graduate another day. That'll be fine. It's like all these things are built up and there's so much pressure. And that helped open our eyes and realize what was really important. And it took a while. During therapy, we had some pretty pointed things from some of the therapists about what we should and shouldn't do. And it was very hard to hear. But I think they were right. I didn't like the way they said it. Very pointed at us as parents.
Yeah.
Meaning the therapy that we had prior to Ryan's.
Right. Prior to the
death.
time he.
Oh, okay.
While he was experiencing depression, anxiety, and some suicidal ideation. Right. So there were. Yeah,
they
that's
were
true.
trying to get
that message of
to us, or
relax
to me,
a little.
Relax.
Yeah.
Focus on your son and do the things that will give him some relief. And we tried.
Yeah.
But in hindsight now, okay. Yeah, I get it a little more now. So
On that same vein of intrusive thoughts and dealing with just the pain of losing a child, did you guys ever have some intrusive thoughts to harm yourself or to take your own life or suicide or any way just to relieve the pain? Is that stuff that ever actually came up in your own world?
No, not for me. I had experienced that as a young person.
Yeah.
So I did understand what it felt like to have those thoughts, or how the experience of physical pain might alleviate some of emotional pain. I had experienced that as a young child. I didn't have that in the aftermath of Ryan's death. And I'm not sure why that was. I had love and sadness for him, that was how he was feeling. That's what his emotional state was on that. And I'm still feel so sad that in that moment that he thought that ending his life was a better choice than moving through whatever he was experiencing at the time. So I feel great sadness for that. And I'm grateful that I haven't had that experience at this point in time.
Yes.
And I leave that open because I don't know what the future holds, right? Any one of us can experience that. And I would not want to add any sense of guilt or shame to anyone that does.
Yeah.
And if that does happen, then again, I wouldn't want anybody to feel shame about having those experiences or about seeking help, because that is where their thoughts are headed.
Yeah.
There are ways to get help, and being open about it, talking about it, is one of the best ways to work through it, and to be able to say out loud, right. If I was having thoughts of harming myself, I would hope that I could go to someone, whether it was Dana or a professional, if that was necessary, and not feel bad about it. Everybody needs help at some point.
Yeah.
Everybody experiences difficult things, and we all experience it differently. So.
And And in the context of this question, the reason why I'd even bring that up, we've had multiple people on here who have had, right? This whole podcast is all about the loss of a child.
Yeah.
And multiple people have experienced that. And so then in the context of a couple, where I would go from there is if you had, I would be like, okay, well, how did you bring it up to Dana? Or Dana, how did you bring it up to Pam? So then it could show somebody that is experiencing that an avenue that they could go through to be able to talk about it with their couple or with their
spouse.
Their spouse.
I don't know that you've had those thoughts. Have you ever?
No. Not like, I've had fleeting thoughts about, well, what if I just pulled out in front of this car or whatever, what would happen? And but that's the extent. It's not a plan or try to alleviate pain in some way. My coping is along the lines of, get involved in things, be busy. Maybe that's a good way. Maybe sometimes not a good way to handle those feelings and try and help somebody else. I think that's the most positive thing that
I will say in terms of my thoughts surrounding death, and again, I haven't had thoughts of harming myself or taking my own life, but I have had moments of longing for death. And I certainly don't fear it the way that I once did because there's someone on the other side that I really want to see. I really want to, I want that conversation of finally being able to say, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And I know that he knows that, or that's what I believe. And that is what I feel in my heart, that he knows that I'm sorry. But I do long for that conversation. I see death differently, for sure. And there are pieces of me that look forward to that in ways that I didn't before.
Yeah.
I think I feel similar to that. I was just on a bike ride with somebody a couple months ago, and we were riding kind of just around here, and it's kind of busy around here where we're at. And she's like, are you okay riding in this spot? And I'm like, honestly, I don't care if I get hit by a car. Like, if that's what's supposed to happen, so be it. Like, but I think it's kind of similar to how you kind of feel about like, if I die, then that's it. It's okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely have a pull, like I said, not in terms of self-harm, but in terms of a pull toward my child, which is different than how I feel about my parents who've also passed. But that they lived long lives and did all the things that they
full lives,
right? A very full life. And so it's a different feeling. I long to see them again, but with Ryan, there's unfinished business in terms of, how he left this world and his unfinished life, right?
Exactly.
That's the piece that's where if I feel any regret, I regret that he didn't get to complete whatever life was going to be for him. So.
And you guys had both talked individually and then also collectively here in this one, how after Ryan's death, you kind of turned towards each other and you were like, hey, we want to make sure that we make this work. Have you had to have like similar moments in the past 9 years, 10 years that you've been like, hey, remember, we're trying to like be in this together, right? Where you'd have to turn towards each other. Have you had significant times that you've had to do that?
Sure.
I think part of it is that communication of this is where I'm at and this is what I need from you. Or, I need you to understand that this is how I'm feeling about something. So I think that's part of it.
She has been, become better at getting through my head. Hey, I'm serious. This is like a boundary. This is, I'm feeling this way, or I'm doing this thing, and this other thing is really hard. Like I think we talked about, one of our good things we do is the Ryan's Rally event.
Yeah.
And that has become a wonderful thing, and it is, but it's also really hard.
Yeah.
A lot of work.
And so
Probably
she
a lot
has
of
to
emotions
remind
that
me
come
all the
up.
time,
Yeah.
hey, I can only do this much, or
Yeah.
I have my plate's full, so I can't, don't expect me to do this thing. So I know that I still put pressure on you, but I hope that I give you some relief too.
Yeah, and I think that part of that is the being open and honest, and not necessarily going along with something to keep peace, but being able to speak up and say, "This is how I'm feeling," or I'm stressed and I need you to take some things off of my plate. And I think that's about going back to understanding he can't read my mind. He will only know what I tell him. So
Except for those conversations that you have with her in your mind.
well, there's the thing.
I think it goes both ways.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does go both ways. And that is a very fair statement, that I only know what he tells me. And so I also have to be willing to ask the questions. Hey, are you willing to do this thing? Or recently I needed help with something on the computer. That's a normal thing for me, needing a little computer help, and saying, is this a good time for me to ask you for help? Are you in a good place to offer some assistance on this? Right. So, that's fair as well. Like, because in that statement, I'm saying, are you in the right state of mind, to walk me through something that might make you
of rational
patience.
thought. Patience.
This may have happened
Sometimes,
just today
way too often, it's no.
with us.
I can't do that right now. But
right. So that's only fair. So that's it's both things. It's my willingness to speak up with what I want and need, but also my willingness to ask Dana, what he wants and needs. And is this a good time for me to take some energy or brain power, whatever it is that I need at that time? It's fair for me to give him a chance to say, yeah, give me 5 minutes or half an hour, whatever that is. Let me come
tomorrow.
to this when I'm ready. Yeah, that's fair too, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I think that's huge, and that's a growing up process as well, with or without loss, right? That learning to communicate with each other and being honest about those needs, right? You're not a bad person for needing some time to yourself. You're not a bad person for, not being in the right headspace to do whatever the thing is that your spouse needs. And it's also, excuse me, it's okay to say, can I come back to this in 15 minutes or tomorrow or whatever that is. And knowing yourself well enough to know what you need, which can be difficult, especially if you are in the throes of grief. It's difficult to know what you want and need, I think, or it was for me, I should say. But that being able to say it out loud and own your own needs and own your own reactions, to your partner or to whoever else needs something from you.
I'm trying to formulate this in my head. I don't know if it'll come out the best way, but kind of based off everything you're saying is just honestly a lot of couples gold nuggets anyways, right? Of being able to communicate well with one another and like be able to communicate your needs and even ask questions of like, hey, is this a good time for you? Right. Cause then you're taking into account what Dana's in the middle of. I don't like how I have this phrased in my head, but I'm just going to say it. Is Ryan's death somehow a good thing that forced you into figuring some of these couples things out?
So can I help you with that?
Yeah.
I would never call Ryan's death a good thing.
And
I
that's
know
why
that
I'm like, okay, but how can I phrase it that it forced this magnifying glass onto your relationship?
But have good things come out of it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely good things have come out of it. And so, and I think that's a great way to reframe loss or tragedy or difficult experiences that we have is, that's something I've we've tried something that a phrase that Dana uses a lot in our family is, how do we make something good happen? And as odd as it can sound, there are some gifts that have come out of this tragedy. And I don't know if they are compensatory blessings or if they are, fortunate things that have occurred since the loss. But yes, I think the loss made life itself. We understand how precarious life is, right? I don't have the promise of tomorrow, right? I don't have the promise of, right? We just don't know what the future holds. So today needs to be the best I can make it. And not in the sense of putting pressure on myself, but in the sense of being the person I want to be, right? Using the words that I want to with the people that I love and the people that are around me. Am I giving to them the best part of me? And in some ways, that is something good that's come out of Ryan's death, is hopefully, and not every day, not 100% of the time, but hopefully I'm more careful with my words. Yeah. I'm more careful with my time and my energy, and that I'm using it in ways that I prioritize, and that I'm still giving to other people the love and care that they need from me. So I hope that's one of the gifts that come out of that.
For me, I would have to say I was not a very empathetic or sensitive person. Maybe a little bit occasionally, but not really. After this experience, it really changed the way I thought about a lot of things.
Yeah.
And how the realization, how important it is, the words I speak to my children, my wife, friends, everybody. And I have an opportunity to, be that person that is helpful and non-judgmental. Mm-hmm. I struggle a lot with that. I was very judgmental. I still am, but I work on it. Be more accepting of who a person is and love them for who they are. There's no, I don't have a problem with that. That's what Jesus would have done. He loved people in the spot they were at and helped to elevate.
Yeah.
And I seek to be that, and I can do that sometimes. But my brain pattern, my wiring, I have to work on that because I'm wired to make judgments, make quick decisions. But I hope that I'm becoming more aware of people and their feelings and how I can help them get through a tough moment or provide comfort in some way, and not just judge them and move on. So I think that's, and I don't think that would come any other way. Mm-hmm. Sad to say for me, but there are many things, the way I think of things in life, that this experience has changed me, and hopefully for the good, where I can be more accepting of people and be there for them and be helpful and not so focused on myself and my feelings and my needs. I have a great life. We have a great life. We really have a great life. Been so blessed in so many ways. And we do look forward to that day when we'll be together and give a big hug, and that's going to happen. That's one thing that I live for. I'm not quite ready to go. Pam's ready to move in the older folks' house before it becomes an issue. of getting older, but I'm not ready yet. But, all of us are mortal and our time passes. And so how do we want to spend it? I think that's a really good question to ask yourself.
Yeah.
How do I want to spend that time? Who do I want to become? Who do I want to be like? And really think about that and do that as opposed to a reflex.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you for those answers, and please forgive me for how I phrased the question.
No,
I realized
fine.
it wasn't the best, but it was what was in my head. I was trying to get out. So
No, it's a
please
great
forgive me.
question.
Yeah.
And thank you for asking that question, because it's true. It's true. There are hard experiences. If you look for the golden lining, the silver lining, you'll find it. And that's what we've found, I think, is if we'll focus on the good, it's there in abundance. And we believe that wholeheartedly.
So the last thing I would like to do is essentially reverse the roles and say, like, what would you guys tell us? We're only been a year, not even a year since the death of Sonny. What advice would you give us to make our relationship strong? You guys have held hands through the whole podcast, so I feel like I need to do that.
Breathe in, breathe out.
Yeah.
Somebody told us that, didn't they?
All you have to do, to do right now is breathe.
Just breathe in,
Just breathe,
and breathe out.
and you don't have to do
And
anything else for now.
sometimes the breathing out was hard because you just get stuck. But
Yeah, I think a couple things that I would say are wherever you're at, right? It is such a journey and a process, right? And where you are today is not where you're going to be next week or next year or 5 years from now, and that's okay. So wherever you're at is okay for you to be, and continue to move forward. I do like that phrase of turn toward each other. I think it's really important in a marriage to always turn toward your spouse and make that a deliberate choice in your life.
in Pam's case, even when your spouse is a turkey,
No.
she's not a turkey. I'm a turkey sometimes.
No, we all have our moments.
But it's a decision.
It is
we both realize
is.
it's a decision that, hey, I chose you. You said yes. So on we go.
His mom, I remember years ago, this is a sidebar, but his mom said years ago, I started to complain about something that Dana said or did. I can't even remember now. And she kind of stopped me because I'm saying this to the mother of the person I'm complaining about. To my, yeah. Anyway, she said, now remember, you wanted him. And it was like the perfect way of saying, like, remember who you're talking to and maybe don't complain about your husband to other people. And I was like, so that's been a good reminder. Remember that you wanted each other. You wanted to be married. You wanted this relationship. And for us, we wanted this relationship forever. And that's the commitment that we made. And not every day is easy in that. And it isn't meant to be. Life wasn't meant to be easy and give each other enough space to be who you need to be and allow your spouse to be all that they're able to be, right? Give each other that opportunity to grow and become different and rejoice in their growth, right? Dana isn't the person he was, 39 years ago when we got married, and neither am I. And yay for us both. We've learned a lot. We've grown a lot. We are different. And certainly I don't think I'd be where I am at or do some of the things that I've done without those experiences, the hard ones as well as the good ones. So that's, let things happen and also, choose where you put your focus, right? Choose what your family will be, what your relationship will be. Mm-hmm. That helps a little.
I have to say, I'm amazed that you're putting this together. that you're putting people's stories out, letting them tell and share. How is that? Is this helping you? Are you getting, is this hard for you to do? What are your feelings about this experience, both of you? You said turn the tables.
There you go. Table turned.
I think it's definitely not easy. I mean, it is hard to hear other people's stories of the loss of their children.
Yeah.
And, when we first started releasing things, people were like, oh, how are you thinking it's going or whatever? And like some people would tell us like, oh yeah, like, it's so helpful for me, or I sent it to this person and they said it's so helpful for them. But I'm like, but is it? And like, we'd always like say that, but, I really do feel like it is helping people, and it's helpful that we have other, like you guys and other people that are willing to share and try to get it out to those that just need to hear it. Not necessarily those that have lost children, but, the communities that are around them as well. And it's not like always easy for Blake and me and our relationship. And he does definitely majority of it because I don't know how to do any of the editing or anything like that. I'm just like, oh, sure, I'll schedule them and like whatever, just simple stuff on my part. So I don't know if it's probably more cumbersome, or I don't know if that's the right word to use for Blake than it would be for me. But I do feel like we have a lot of uncertainty in our lives right now. And I feel like this is the only thing that I am certain on, is that we need to do this.
Is it helpful to me? It's really hard to do.
Yeah.
Because with both of you individually, the way that I relate it to other people is I like relived your worst day with you.
Yeah.
Right? That's awful to do it over and over again with all these people, their worst day. And I relive it with them. And then when I go and edit, I can't even tell you the number of times that I'm like in tears while I'm editing, because I'm re-listening, reliving kind of that experience that somebody got in a super vulnerable place, shared things that honestly they probably haven't shared with almost anyone, right? And so it's like over and over and over again. The gold lining, silver lining, talking about good things coming out of awful situations. As in a small way, I do think that it's helping people. And I had the same kind of questions of like, is it really helping? Is it just someone saying nice things to me like, oh, your podcast is so nice? Or is it actually helpful? And I kind of like had a conversation with God about that a little bit. And he kind of rebuked me a little bit and was like, dude, shut up, man. It's doing exactly what it needs to do. Like, stop questioning if it's actually helping people or not. Right? Just keep doing it. Okay.
And I will tell you, I haven't watched all of the episodes, but the ones that I've watched have allowed me to feel not so alone as a griever. And that is a gift. So thank you for those moments of feeling not alone in how grief has affected us. So that alone, right? There's a good thing to come from it. And it is hard, right? It is hard to talk about. It will take some energy. I'll have to recharge. But that's okay. Right? If someone hears something and they can use it in how they talk to other people, if it lets somebody feel not so alone, right? Those are good things. Those are good outcomes.
Yeah.
So, and then the question also becomes, you don't always know, right? Because once you put it out there, it's out there. You may not know how it helps. And I imagine, like most things, there comes a time way down the road and you go, oh, this is why it was supposed to do that. This is, an answer usually comes much later on how it can be beneficial to other people or even to yourselves.
Yeah.
So.
Well, thank you guys very much for being on the podcast and sharing your story again. And hopefully, even just like, honestly, people that were in relationships or want to be in a strong relationship, marriage relationship, there's tons of nuggets that were in here about things to do, but particularly when it comes to after the loss of a child and how important it is to turn together. Some good lines that I've learned to love is choose who you love and then love who you chose, right? Love your choice. And so and another thing that I've always thought is recently, just wedding vows in general, they're almost unattainable, right? To live up to those. But if we try as much as we can to live up to those and then understand that we give grace when the other spouse didn't live up to theirs, then I think the world would be in a lot better place, just because people are trying to live up to what the expectations or what they promised to do. Yeah.
And I think every time you guys kept saying to turn towards each other, it just reminded me of the scriptures when God says to cleave to your spouse. So that's not just hold their hand, but be with them through thick and thin.
Yeah. And as hard as this whole thing, the grief and, the tragedy of losing a child is, I can't imagine it if I had to do it alone.
Oh yeah.
Right. If I had to be alone in that would, I can't even go there. And that's part of the difficulty of it is watching my husband grieve, right? Of holding him in my arms while he wept, those bitter tears. But also, that opportunity to hopefully offer comfort and love and understanding and empathy, right? So again, that's another place of just trying to not compound the hurt, right? To maybe stop that hurt and offer whatever balm I can, through love, through tenderness, or just physical presence. If I can provide that wherever I can, that's a good thing for us both. And I hope I'm available when that's needed.
Thank you.
Thank you guys very much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us on the Lost Child podcast. If you enjoyed this, please subscribe. And remember, shine bright, and we'll see you in the next episode.